podcast where we put you on the map. This is Ron Costa broadcasting live from the MapableUSA studios in Las Vegas, Nevada. And folks, crowdfunding is exploding all over the place in all kinds of industries. And today we're going to talk about water again. And before we do that, let's introduce Vicki Hutchmala from the World Poker Market. Vicki, how are you doing today?
Oh, Ron, it's a beautiful day in Vegas, and I am fabulous. And we are excited because we've got somebody that we did a podcast with, and now we're going to talk about how fundraising, crowdfunding, and using it has helped to totally expand his business into a major success. So let's get started.
Okay, that sounds good. So let's introduce Riggs Eckelberry. He's the CEO and co-founder of Origin Clear. And Riggs, how are you doing today?
I'm doing fabulously, and in fact, I'm looking forward to getting one last week of skiing next week before the season closes down for us. You know, when you're in Florida, you got to really plan these ski trips because they don't happen automatically. You know what I'm saying?
No, for a second there, I thought you were going to tell me you're skiing in Florida. That wouldn't be too cool. I wouldn't think that would happen.
Well, it'll be water skiing, but you know. What I've learned to do over the years, because I love skiing, is to work while I ski, and I think it makes me smarter. In fact, I was literally standing on a slope on the 15th of February, a few weeks ago, with my co-director, Ryan Spick, while we were in the last seconds of the filing of our merger agreement, our merger filing. It's called an S4 with the SEC, to put the company we have created, Water on Demand, onto the NASDAQ through an acquisition by a blank check company. And it was, I looked around, I'm like, you know what, here I am in fairyland, and I'm doing a financial transaction. How could it be any better?
Oh,
no,
my God,
great.
How wonderful. Oh, wow.
Yeah, that is really amazing. And I guess we could talk about that, but before we do, let's get into you a little bit. Tell us a little bit about your background and how you got into this whole crowdfunding scene with Origin Clear.
Well, you know, I was raised really without a home. My father was an itinerant Procter & Gamble exec, so we lived all over the place, the Caribbean and Europe, and I think I brought a kind of international view to things. Then after high school, I was in the nonprofit space for a long time. And that, I think, really informed my sense of wanting to do something about the way things are in the world. And I got a chance to do something about that when I got involved in technology in the 80s. And, you know, I back in the 80s, we were doing great work, but we were very badly capitalized. In the 90s is when I really learned how corporations work, got involved with the .com, had some good exits. Most importantly, learned a lot about the funding process in the early 2000s, took a company public on the NASDAQ as the number 2 in the software space, and then got an opportunity to have my own company. There's been so many changes, Ron, in how funding is done. Probably the most important one, as you mentioned, is it was called the Jobs Act, which, strangely enough, was passed by a Democrat administration, but it was a revolution. It was 2012, so 12 years ago, that it was rolled back, financial regulation, to enable everyday companies to raise money and go public. Pretty much on a bootstrap basis.
Yeah, it opened the door for a lot.
Yeah, you're making me feel old. That's 12 years that went real fast, didn't it?
It did.
Yeah.
But, you know, the funny thing is that the crowdfunding space is only now becoming mature. One of the big players, probably the biggest player in the space, Start Engine, has had some big successes. Companies like Boxable, Nightscope with a K, they both raised over $100 million and they got onto the NASDAQ purely with Regulation A crowdfunding. In other words, getting lots of small investors which to me, I think is the ideal. We raise a lot of money from big investors, but I think it's healthier, just like a political campaign, to have a lot of smaller investors, and that's what we prefer to do.
Well, and one thing that it did, it allowed people with out-of-the-box ideas like yourself and like Bill Lee from Nightscope to create things that help society and make it profitable and find the investors they need that have a like mindset. And I think that was a good thing from it as well.
Yes. And in fact, I was told recently by a banker over at E.F. Hutton that there's really only two ways you can go public these days. And one is the way we're doing it with this blank check company. That's a whole different story that we don't have to get into, but basically you get acquired by a company that's already on the NASDAQ whose sole purpose is to acquire companies, or you do the crowdfunding. The other way is, doing rounds A through G with VCs and so forth. That's a long haul and does not work well. And I also do not recommend people sort of organically filing themselves onto the penny stock market without a whole lot of support, because the OTC I don't think is a great market anymore.
No, it's
not. And so I recommend that people, where possible, they go. I mean, we've been OTC since 2007, so we're kind of used to it. But I wouldn't do it again today. I would work directly going to the NASDAQ as the only way to go.
Right, especially when you can get non-accredited investors to work with you as well, so that it's not just the guys with the big money that you're relying on. It's the people who are going to actually use the product that you're developing that will support you and tell everybody they know about you.
That's a huge piece of it. I agree. Huge.
So what's going on now? What can you tell us about what Origin Clear and how they are using the crowdfunding space to help them? What are you doing at this point in time?
Okay, so just to back up a little bit, we prior to 2015, we had a pure technology approach where we were pushing a breakthrough technology developed by my brother Nicholas, co-founder. And in general, we found that in the water industry, it's very hard to push new technology. It's not a technology friendly sector. Mainly, I guess, because of concerns about public health or whatever. But the point is, they're not early adopters, and so we kind of did a pivot where we worked more on the business model of the water industry. And at the time, there was a shift occurring, which has now become really obvious, which is a shift away from centralized water treatment toward, treat in place. The businesses doing their own water treatment, taking responsibility for the toxic waste, and ultimately able to recycle, which we think is critical to saving the planet, is recycling water. So we moved into that business model. We acquired one company, Progressive Water, and then we created another called Modular Water. And then in 2020, we created a third company. And then in 2023, we packaged all three of those into under the banner of Water on Demand to be acquired by this special purpose acquisition company, or SPAC. And that, what we've done this whole time is develop a way to get this concept over to everyday investors. And what made it work was we weren't just asking for money to support our burn, but we were also raising capital for the Water on Demand concept, which is basically a water as a service idea. So we were building a fund, and that appealed. So we have a high appeal offering for accredited investors, which is great. Now, having done that, and it's working well, and we're getting a lot of investors in, But I consider the marketing to be very wasteful because even highly targeted marketing, you're still getting about 60% unaccredited investors in your funnel. And what do you do with them? Well, you're wasting them. So the better way to do it is to create an offering using Regulation A, where anybody can invest, and the minimum is very low, and they get common shares in the company, plus maybe an option to buy another share. So very simple offer. Anybody can come in, you mass market it, and then that creates investment. But more importantly, the people coming through, a certain percentage will be accredited, and then you can offer them that fund, that capital opportunity, as an upsell. And so it's a hybrid. It's a hybrid of the wide marketing, which is why we recently recruited Kevin Harrington to help us, because you want a lot of visibility, very high profile, get a lot of people in, and then a certain percentage will be promoted to the larger investment. And so it's a good combination. And basically, it pays for all your marketing, and more. I mean, it's very, very good. From a point of view of return on investment, it's really, really excellent to have that combination.
Well, tell our listeners who Kevin Harrington is in case they don't know, and why it was so good.
Kevin embarrasses me because he's still got all his hair. He's been in the industry for more than 50 years. He must have started at the age of 5, I guess. But he looks ridiculously young, and he actually invented the infomercial. He invented the As Seen on TV label that we all know. He was one of the original sharks on Shark Tank, and he continues to advise companies. He had a big success, for example, with Celsius, which is a sugar-free energy drink, and made it a national brand. Now it's in distribution at supermarkets and so on. So he's very effective. He's got a great following. I think one of the keys to success is that he's very wise about what he supports. He won't just support you just because you pay him. I think you have to convince him that you got something good. And so he's got integrity. He's got an integrity brand. And so we signed him up onto our board of advisors to help with the crowdfunding that we're about to launch. And so that, I think, you got to have that visibility, because a Regulation A offering that trades by appointment only is a waste of time and money. So you want to have that high profile.
And he certainly brings it, and plus he brings a sense of credibility, but to people who don't know about Origin Clear would automatically consider it just because of his presence.
Exactly. So it's like when you're the son of a well-known banker, it'll get you in the door. You still have to prove yourself, and that's true of us too. But at least it gives people a point of recognition, like, oh, well, Kevin's involved. That's got to mean something. So it gives us a chance to make our case.
So listen, getting back to the Reg A part of this now, let's talk about how you kind of did that. Did you did you have a lawyer? You put the paperwork into the SEC? What was that process like?
Well, the main thing is you want to get a platform, a portal, as they say. The one we use is the one operated by my good friend Rod Turner over at Manhattan Street Capital, and they will provide all the machinery for you got to do background checks, money laundering, that kind of stuff. You have to verify people, and they have that process built. So they host it. They will not do the marketing. They will recommend a marketing agency if that's what you need, and then they will bring in broker to help with the actual You have to have a broker, a transfer agent, and of course, we use our own SEC counsel for the Regulation A filing, the actual registration statement. So all those resources add up. You kind of have to have money. As usual, you have to have money to make money, right? So
Exactly.
I would say you probably should have, let's say $100,000 between lawyers, platform expenses, and also the initial marketing to get things going.
And that's something that a lot of companies forget to do, that you need to market and let people know who you are and what you have and why what you're doing is better before you start the process and spend the money, so that you don't have to do it later and backtrack.
Listen, for many years,
very expensive.
when I was in the software industry for many years, I specialized in working with companies that had spent all their money to create a wonderful product, but hadn't bothered to get it well known and accepted. And that's a critical part. What's the point of creating a product if nobody comes?
Exactly. And it costs a lot of money to get it done.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
And I noticed that when I go to your website, originclear.com, there is a button there that says Invest Now, right? Is that part of the private labeling that you guys did?
Ron, don't press that button. What are you doing? No, don't. That's the nuclear bomb. Oh my gosh. Yeah. I see the taking off right now. Yeah. But anyway, no, what that is currently, it's our Regulation D, or Regulation D offerings are for accredited investors. So right now, that's for our pure accredited investment. Right now, we're in test the waters on the Regulation A, meaning that we don't yet have it filed or approved with the SEC. That process is going on, but you're allowed, while you're doing that, to put out to find out if people are interested. You can put up a page and get reservations from people, and you can't take their money, but at least it gives you an idea of what's going on. And so we're about to launch that and integrate it with the Regulation D offering.
Okay, yeah, so the testing the waters, if I go on there as a potential investor, I'm going to add my name to that and say, well, I'm going to pledge to invest $5,000 or whatever it is, but no money is taken from me at that point. It's just kind of like a promise, so that when this Reg A becomes effective, then all of a sudden, I guess you guys contact me again and say, hey, Ron, we're ready to go? Is that the way it works?
Yeah, and you had no obligation. It's kind of like a deposit at a car dealership. It's just a good faith deposit, and there's no obligation. But what it allows us to do is to get some momentum going with and to test out messaging and so forth, advertising. We made a decision a couple of years ago to take all of our Facebook advertising in-house and invest in an in-house capability. And I think it's paid off, so that we have a very sophisticated advertising funnel on Facebook, which, people can criticize Facebook all they want, but their targeting is amazing. And you really know who you're talking to on that platform.
That's true.
Right. I wish I was as popular in real life as I am on Facebook. That would be a great thing.
That's funny.
Yeah. So you have a number of offerings out there. Then you have the what you just talked about. You have the Reg A coming up, right? You have an OTC listing. I mean, it's incredible how far you've come, and really, we talked about it before the podcast. Not a short period of time, right? This didn't happen overnight.
No, it's been more than a decade that we've been at it, you don't build companies overnight. I mean, that's the truth of it. I think the most important thing is that we've constantly looked to adapt to what worked and what you might call broken field running. And you got to constantly do that, not just in your marketing, but your fundamental strategy, and go, you know what, this isn't working, we got to try something else. And and of course, it takes an appetite for risk, but it also takes a certain amount of judgment. I think that my incredibly diverse career background, although it has not made me as rich as the founder of Facebook, it certainly has given me the experience to make decisions and to come up with bright ideas, especially working with the team like Ken Berenger, who co-created Water on the Land with me, AJ Piquet, who's our VP marketing, a stellar team working with me.
Yeah, and I'm sure along the lines you've taken the hits, you've learned that not everything is easy. Do you think that that's one of the reasons why a lot of these business owners are maybe afraid to get into the Reg A? Because they're afraid of the process, they're afraid of failing, they're afraid of not knowing how it works when they see people like yourselves doing it all the time. And this is something that I think every business should at least be looking into if they want to raise money. Right? But I think there's a fear factor there, or maybe they don't get enough information or they're not knowledgeable enough. What do you think about that?
Well, it's always very hard to do something for the first time, right? I remember when I first became a ship captain. Before I was a ship captain, I was not, and then I was, and nothing prepared me for that experience. It's like all of a sudden you're in charge, you're it. Everybody's looking at you, right? But to the extent possible, you want to apprentice, you want to try things out, you want to, if you can't get the experience yourself, see if you can buy the experience. If people can, they should try and affiliate with Start Engine, which is a great platform. But Start Engine is also very selective, and they don't take just everybody. And they also want to have you exclusively, which is why we didn't go with them originally when we first did our first Reg A back in 2020. And so I think choice of platform is very important. Figuring out how someone else has done it well is very important. Getting a good marketing partner, these are all critical. So I think the important thing is to start with, look at people who are doing it well. For example, I'm a big skier, and I'm watching a company called Renown, Renoun, which has a line of skis. In fact, I bought a pair. And now they're doing a Regulation A, and it's worth looking at, why it's going well for them. Well, for one thing, they already had an existing Facebook-based merchandising business, so they were already selling product, and they were able to leverage that into the fundraising. So I think one way to go is to have a business, an online business that you can then you can use the momentum of that business to get you into the fundraising.
Exactly. And
like we say, if you have a great product or a great company, and it's just amazing to you, and the business owner thinks that he's God and he's done everything great, it really won't matter unless you get the word out to people and make it attractive for investors, which of course is the whole goal of marketing. And people think it's easy, like, oh yeah, I'll do it, no problem. But they don't realize that there's a special talent there. You got to be really, really good about it. And I think you're handling it the right way. You really, you're targeting the whole thing the way it's supposed to be done, and that's very impressive.
Well, the real gold is your customers, right? They are your potential investors as well. And so, if you look at a business that you've been building, if you've managed to create a lot of customer loyalty, then those same people will turn around and put a small amount of money into the investment, and that'll be your jumpstart. So I think that's really a very powerful way to go, in my opinion.
Yeah, and these are evangelists. You turn your customers into evangelists. They're the ones that they become your sales force almost when you think about it.
100%.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Have you ever contemplated using tokens and blockchain to raise money?
I had a big blockchain experiment back in, 2018. Like you say, Ron, passage of time, right? 6 years ago. It was very difficult because the underlying business case for crypto has to be there, unless you're going to do a meme coin, which I could care less. Like somebody else can do that crap. But if you want to establish a genuine business case, we are in development on a blockchain wrapper for the dividends we intend to pay down the road on water on demand, but that's still in the lab. We're interested. At the same time, we're well aware that the SEC does not love crypto, and so when you're a public entity, you want to be aware of what the SEC likes and doesn't like.
Yeah, it makes sense. It makes sense for sure. You don't want to get those people on your back. But listen, Riggs, before we close this out, I do want to touch upon the fact, getting back to marketing, I guess, you do something really smart that a lot of people should be doing. And I think one thing I really like about what you're doing is you have those like CEO talks, right? Don't you have a CEO page where people can go and you do weekly updates and things like that?
Yes. So if people go to originclear.com and click on CEO, well, they'll get an invitation right away to sign up for my weekly CEO briefings every Thursday night. I think I've done almost 230 of these so far, and we tell it like it is. And initially, I'm on screen, and then we do a bunch of news about the company, about the economy, et cetera. But then we get the team on, and the 3 top execs of the company get together and discuss things. It's very, very informative for investors because it's rare that public companies have that level of disclosure.
But people want to know what they're investing in, and they want to hear it from the person that's taking their money, not, from just anybody. It makes a whole lot of difference in terms of your credibility when you take the time to tell the people, this is why you should invest with me. This is what we're doing, because you're the one with the passion.
Well, and they feel it, right? I mean, people know,
right.
And this is why I think it's so important to talk to your audience.
Yeah, the only downside that I see to your CEO briefings is that you haven't done one from the ski slopes yet. I've never seen a background of the slopes.
Oh, you are tempting me.
That would be good.
Bad.
You better hurry up before it melts. Maybe.
Well, go ahead.
Go on, Vicki.
Well, what I was going to say is, now that we've talked about how you've gone about creating your business, maybe we should let our listeners get an idea of what your business is. What does Origin Clear do?
Origin Clear launches companies that are intended to disrupt their sector. Right now, we're focused on the water industry. And what we did was, for the last 7 years, we've built 3 businesses that we then consolidated into one in 2023 to create enough value that it would have an objective valuation sufficient to be acquired by a company that was specifically created to acquire companies. And they're called SPACs, Special Purpose Acquisition Corporation or Company. And they have a bunch of cash, but they have no operations. And their sole purpose is to buy companies. And there's a lot of them out there. And what's weird is that they generally have a very hard time finding companies to buy. I don't know if I had $100 million, I think I would know how to buy a company. I don't know about you, but it seems like relatively,
perhaps, yeah.
Like, okay, I got some cash. You want to sell? Yeah, okay. So, but for some reason, there's a glut of these SPACs, and we managed to get involved with one that, was a good fit. And so that is our first major exit that we're busy negotiating right now. We've negotiated it. It's already a done deal as far as the business combination goes. But of course, we have to get SEC approval, NASDAQ approval, and that's by no means guaranteed. But But the point is that we've become very, very good at raising money from everyday investors. That's kind of our superpower. We know how to do it. We know how to make it worth their while. We treat them well. Our investors, if they stick with us, will be well rewarded. And so what we plan to do now is obviously we're going to continue to support Water Demand as it goes onto the NASDAQ and gets built out, but we're then going to take some more companies and put them through the Origin Clear company development funnel, incubation, call it what you will, that we've now developed. So we know how to create companies, and then we know how to get them funded and ultimately get them to the NASDAQ. So that really is our mission, is to, the number of public companies, I just saw the stat, has last 10 years or so has dropped by half. In other words, there's been a tremendous reduction in the number of public companies out there. And that's because it's just hard. It's hard to govern them. It's hard to do, to do the right thing. Well, we know how to do that. We bit the bullet. We have the competency, and we also know how to, manage expectations. What's great, in my opinion, is Origin Clear itself is still a penny stock, while it is going to be the largest single owner, I believe, of a NASDAQ company. So it's going to have some tremendous future potential. So I'm personally holding on to my stock because I think it's got potential. Obviously, I'm not making a recommendation, but the fact that Origin Clear is a penny stock, I think, might put off some people, but I also see it as an opportunity to get involved early on in a company that we think is going to be legendary.
Oh, well, yeah. I think anybody listening to this podcast is kind of seeing that as well. They definitely know what you're doing and everything. And now, just to be clear, I can go to OTC Markets right now and purchase your stock, but your Reg A is still in development. Is that right?
So the Regulation A offering is for a private subsidiary of a public company. I'm sorry, no. The rules got changed. You can actually get public company stock. So the Regulation A offering enables you to get a small bonus. For example, right now if I go to Yahoo Finance or Schwab, I can buy stock in OCLN, and I'll get it. Let's say it's a penny. I get a share for a penny. Fine. But if I buy it through Regulation A, I'll get that same share for a penny, but I'll also get a warrant, so that I can buy another share over the next 3 years for a penny, and it goes like 10 cents, then I've had an opportunity to get a second swing at the bat. So it has, theoretically, it's more potential, right? Now, those shares ultimately are publicly traded. They're common stock eventually, just like regular OCLN shares.
Okay, that's good. So then now if somebody is listening to this podcast and interested in getting more information or finding out how this is done, how would they get in touch with you? What's the best way to contact you, or any other links you may want to leave?
Well, of course, I strongly recommend joining us for our CEO briefings. You can post comments that we will answer on the air. So if you have questions, that's the easiest way to get them addressed. If you're interested in investing, of course, click on the Invest Now button or send an email to invest@originclear.com. Right now, of course, it's accredited investors, but very, very shortly, even if you put in your name in now, you will be put into a wait list for the crowdfunding. So I recommend, putting your name in, and you'll hear more from us. I think those are the two big ways to do it is, like I said, the briefing and the Invest Now button.
Yeah, well, I think water is pretty important for the planet, don't you? I think that's pretty solid. That's never going to go away.
Well, here's the thing, Ron, is that, every commodity out there is that it's becoming a commodity world, but they're all manipulated. Gold, precious metals, Bitcoin, oil and gas, they're all manipulated commodities. It's the nature of assets these days, even real estate. Forget about commercial real estate. I don't think I could come close to that. But the point I'm making is water is still early in its run. as an investable asset, and it is not as manipulated. It's not manipulated at all because it's still very early. And water, as you say, is very, very stable in terms of demand. It's not going to go up and down.
Yeah, and it's versatile too, because I drank water in the form of beer last night. So,
it's very important to drink, water in the form of beer because you're not going to get bacteria from it because it's been cleansed by the fermentation process.
In fact, this morning I had water in the form of coffee, so everything is good. Vicki, you want to close us out? You got any other questions or comments before we sign off?
Well, I love, Ron, we've done so many podcasts and we've had so many great guests on them. But one thing that is so, amazing to me is we tend to pick the guests for our podcasts who are exceptional, like Riggs. Started off, didn't know, learned, and now has all kinds of, he's got Origin Clear, but Origin Clear has so many subsidiaries doing various aspects of water recycling and cleaning the water. But it all comes down to doing what's right, doing it with integrity, changing the world, and having an impact so that people listening to this podcast, not only is it informative and, this is great, but you have the opportunity by investing with Riggs to change the world and impact society. And that's just fabulous. Kudos to you for being able to do that, Riggs. It's wonderful.
Well, we love doing it. It's what gets us up in the morning. And we think we're creating a movement to enable water recycling. Do you realize that if industry and agriculture just increases recycling from the current levels to 15%, we will double the amount of fresh water available for residential use. And that is a super important cause, and we're all over it.
Outstanding. Yes.
Well, that's definitely a good goal. So Riggs, thanks a lot for being a guest on the show. Really appreciate you taking the time out. Vicki, thanks for co-hosting this episode. And folks, you're listening to the MapableUSA podcast at MapableUSA.com. If you go to that homepage, you scroll down, you'll see all our syndication sources. Pick the one you like best, subscribe, and you'll never miss another one of our episodes. And if you want to be a guest on the show, like Riggs was today, there's a guest tab there. Fill that out. We'll see what you can do by getting on the show. And if you like what you heard, send us an email at info@MapableUSA.com or just leave a comment on whatever page you're listening to this on right now. So thanks for listening. Thanks for your support. We'll see you next time on another Mapable USA podcast. Have a great week, everyone.